Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Tech Can Save Us podcast, brought to you by Literal Humans. As always, I'm Paul David, your host, joined today by Robin Peters, co-founder and CEO of Snugg, here today to talk about home energy efficiency. Welcome to the pod, Robin.
Thank you, Paul. Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well. And where are you calling in from today?
I am calling from sunny Edinburgh, Scotland.
Is it sunny? There we go. All right.
For once, yeah, about 1 in 365 days it's sunny.
There you go. There you go. Well, thanks for taking the time. We really appreciate it. We're very excited to have you on today. You run a fintech that is focused on home energy efficiency. This is a big topic in the UK, the whole insulate UK thing, right? And like all that stuff. So looking to get stuck into that conversation. By way of background, Robin's an engineer, an entrepreneur who has led and founded several businesses, including, I want to say this right, is it Deadlyne? Deadline,
yeah,
with a Y, which helps businesses meet the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, those good old SDGs. And before that, he worked at Aviva, Ernst Young, and Scottish Widows, among other places. We're very happy to have you today. Was that an okay introduction? Did we get it?
That was absolutely spot on, Paul. Well done.
Thank you to Victoria, our senior writer, who always smashes the research here. So first things first, want to kind of like set the scene for our audience about, the issues underlying home energy efficiency and the problem you're trying to tackle here. So would love for you to explain our audience like what retrofitting is and how it can benefit the individual household as well as the planet, and just kind of like frame the problem if you can for us here.
Sure. Got to say, first up, I'm not a massive fan of the term retrofit. It's a bit kind of sciencey, but
what's a better term?
and that's one thing we're trying to do in Snugg is demystify that whole world. But essentially, retrofitting is about fixing homes to decarbonize them and reduce their energy costs.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty critical to the planet. Depending on what data source you look at, about a fifth of total carbon emissions in the UK come from homes. Mm-hmm. And we will not hit net zero unless we do something about it. So it's a real kind of systemic challenge to the country, to the world, actually. It is also, unfortunately, really expensive to fix. So, there've been lots of initiatives over decades to try and fix it, but it's a huge challenge. The Climate Change Committee estimates it's going to cost in excess of £250 billion to fix UK homes over the next 25 years. So it's a big challenge.
Yeah. I'm experiencing this personally. I'm having some cladding remediation done on my building. It's an absolute nightmare. Let me tell you, like we don't have access to this first world problems, but our lovely balconies and, we can't, open certain windows and things like that, but it's, and there's lots of noise and drilling all day and stuff like that. So, very personally going through this, but happy to have less flammable, hopefully better insulation and, maybe more protection from the elements, I guess.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to do this stuff without disruption. And therefore, it's often not the top of people's list of priorities compared to having a new kitchen or going on holiday, but it is pretty important. And the more people certainly I speak to, the more people realize that, we're going to have to do something about this. So yeah, what we're trying to do in Snugg is just make it a little bit easier than it is at the moment, and it's very difficult.
And you mentioned like the scale of the problem. I think you said around 5%. We saw a stat from Lloyd's Bank that mentioned that, or at least they quoted that around 17% of the country's total emissions come from the housing stock. So is there an issue of just like data collection here, or just like for the veracity of the information out there?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are generally between about 16 and 21%, and the difference is, without getting too sciencey, but largely where you count the emissions from energy generation. So if you say that the electricity you use in your home has had carbon used to generate the electricity, then whether or not you count that carbon makes a difference between whether it's 16 or 20%.
Yeah.
It's a lot whichever way you look at it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
we generally use 21% as a number. About a fifth is probably the number we use generally.
Okay, good. Thank you for framing it. And tell me, you mentioned taking umbrage with the word retrofitting. So what's a better term that you'd want us to use, or you want to popularize, I guess, out there?
Just energy efficiency.
Energy efficiency. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, our strap line until recently, I think our marketing guys might have changed it, but it was we're trying to make energy efficient homes simple and affordable for everyone. And
I like it. I like it.
yeah,
As a marketer and branding person, I think you're onto something there. So well
thank
done.
you.
And so curious about, this idea of, sort of, there are a lot of barriers out there, even though there's like lots of potential savings. So, 1,000 to 2,000 per year sort of is one estimate that homeowners could save. So what are some of the barriers out there to, to home energy efficiency, and how do you all address them at Snugg?
Well, you've just talked about one, Paul, which is it's really disruptive.
Mm,
In general, it's difficult. UK homes particularly are leaky and old, and everyone's got its own specific problems. And a lot of the measures you need to take can be disruptive. And things around insulation, other than sort of fixing your roof insulation, can be pretty messy. If you put a heat pump in, you often have to do a lot to kind of radiators and piping, etc. Solar panels, you got people having to climb over your roof. Most of it is quite difficult. So that's a big barrier. The second one, which we're particularly facing into, is it's expensive. So
mm,
the kind of the Climate Change Committee estimate is it costs about £10,000 per home. I think that's probably a very substantial underestimate. It often costs tens of thousands of pounds and often much more than that to properly fix a home.
yeah.
And the payback, even if you were getting £1,000, £2,000, most people will get a few £100 fuel saving, and that means the payback time is in decades, 20, 30, 40 years, etc. And people just get put off by that. And I hesitate to say it actually, because I think things really are changing quite a lot. But there has been a fair bit of consumer apathy. That there's lots and lots and lots of challenges in the world at the moment, and
Yeah.
Decarbonizing your own home often has been
Oh,
pretty low. The fuel crisis we had during the Ukraine war raised the profile of the problem, but it just increased the pain. It didn't really kind of make people more excited about it necessarily.
yeah. How did I was curious about that too. Like I'm an immigrant to the UK, and I was astounded by what I saw during the fuel crisis in terms of the energy price and things like that. I'm wondering like some other countries have put in place caps, on what the energy providers can charge. The UK government has chosen not to. Just curious if that intersects in any way with the work that you do, and how any connection there.
Yeah, there's another. I don't want to be down on people's terminology, but there's another term which I don't think is particularly helpful either, which is at the able to pay segment. So there's
Wow.
actually really quite good support for people who are in fuel poverty or in social housing, etc. And quite some time there's been a lot of financial support to help them, rightly so.
Mm-hmm.
There is the majority of people who may own their home or have a mortgage on their home often have don't have the liquid cash to spend on retrofitting, and they struggle to pay. And so the fuel crisis, which has hit them with significantly higher fuel costs and mortgage increases at the same time,
Right.
has been really, really difficult. So would a fuel cap may have helped. I think there are many other measures which are needed to really get people to act.
Yep. I think there's a little bit of a delay on
Sorry,
your.
you know what? Can we just pause for a minute? I've got
Yeah.
an annoying dog, so
No worries. No worries.
give me 2 seconds.
You're good. You're good.
another first world problem. My wife came home and my dog went bananas. So
Oh, just loves your wife so much. Is the
she
dog?
does, yeah, way more than she loves me, by the way.
I was
But
going to ask. Yeah, I was going to ask. That's always the challenge.
sorry,
Uh,
what were we talking about?
no. I mean, we briefly touched on the issue of caps and sort of support for homes that are struggling to pay for
Yeah, look, and caps were incredibly expensive for the government.
Mm,
The government did actually put a fair bit of intervention in
mhm,
place,
mhm.
but the real chronic problem is the UK, as some other countries, but the UK is very, very dependent on gas and got hit and didn't really have the reserves to be able to offset the price increase. So if that was the case, then really, hopefully, it's prompted the UK to electrify a little bit more. There are countries like Norway, for instance, which is obviously, per capita one of the biggest oil and gas producers
Yeah,
worldwide,
yeah,
has no oil or gas in its fuel distribution. It's entirely electrified. So hopefully that will be an impetus for the UK to accelerate its getting off its dependence on gas for heating. And there are
yeah.
many, many ways to do that.
Yeah. Well, one of the, I asked you a question about barriers to home energy efficiency, and it strikes me that one of the barriers is giving homeowners, sort of access to information about, home energy efficiency. And I just want to like give you a shout out. Your website does a great job of like immediately as soon as you hit it, you can put in your postcode and get, a load of information that kind of empowers you to, take action, and even down to the like, hey, you're at an EPC rating of C, we can move you to B if we put in place these initiatives. It can save you, Y amount of pounds, per year. I think that's really powerful. So I just want to kind of honor the user journey that you have, obviously, as a marketer there. So really,
Thank you.
really well done. But just curious to how you've tried to make it easier and empower people with information and education to kind of move this issue of home energy efficiency forward.
Yeah, well, Paul, that's exactly what it is. I mean, this isn't a kind of a one-shot journey.
Mm,
Someone at some point we might be termed a marketplace, but people don't do this by clicking in their postcode and in 5 minutes getting quotes for installation and getting everything done in a week or so. It's just
right.
a completely different market, and the vast majority of the mass market are just confused by what's on offer and what they should do in their own home with their own personal circumstances, etc. So the way we really try and enforce ourselves to engage with them is through education and help and independent views, etc. Supplemented by a more personalized approach. So we are building, a marketing system to be able to kind of personalize experience much, much more, nudge people along the journey, tell them about people in their local area, for instance, who are also doing similar types of work, give them relevant articles, etc., to the point that at some point they will be ready to get a quote, and we'll move forward in the process. But yeah, a hard sell simply won't work, and it's really, really unproductive.
Yeah. It strikes me that you've got like maybe potentially like a somewhat complex, user journey, product that you kind of really relies on a lot of education and nudging and coaxing even to kind of move people through. So just curious, like as a marketer, as a brand person, like how you've tried to move people through that user journey and get them to conversion, as we say, but like, yeah, get them to take action.
Yeah, and it is absolutely about building trust, and
Mm,
we got a long, long way to go to really build that high level of personalization we need. But
mm,
we definitely are leading the market, I think, uh, for what that means, what that's worth, because the market needs to move a hell of a long way further. But yeah, treating people as humans rather than kind of projects or you know beings that happen to be in a building that needs retrofitting, etc. So there's this, there's a bit of a purist view in the market that you know homes should be deep retrofitted, and whatever it costs, kind of go in,
mm.
strip it out, re-insulate it, fix all the heating from scratch, and then at the right point let the homeowner back in their home. That's an exaggeration, obviously, but that's not how human beings think.
Right.
And our view is, to deal with this confusion, we need to hold people's hand along a journey, which might just start with doing some simple stuff. They may have a bit of FOMO on having an EV charger or getting solar or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, when they're doing some home renovation, think about doing insulation at the same time and then move to a heat pump at a later date. Now, from a kind of a project management perspective, that's not the most efficient way of managing a project like that, but it's much more aligned to the way certainly our view is that most homeowners think.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a personal decision too. Like this is your home, right? It's so like sort of
Yeah.
intricate to your beliefs, culture, how you go about your daily life. And I think you're taking the right approach of like really grounding in the individual and the family, as the unit there. That's really powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And trying to get that referral mechanism, the best thing that could happen for us is, people and families and friends sharing their plans and working as a community. We're increasingly looking at kind of trying to get community engagement and how we build that into the tool.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the work is a very hyper local, issue. One particular street may have completely different set of needs from just one street along. So yeah, we're trying to, and people will listen to their neighbors and stuff more than they will to, a faceless business.
Just to connect the dots here, I mean, literally just finished a podcast recording with Michael Wood Lewis, who runs an organization called the Front Porch Forum out in Vermont, and they're doing some incredible stuff, connecting neighbors locally and getting them everything from, hey, I've got some flower pots that I want to trade off, all the way up to organizing folks. So we'll definitely connect you too, because I think there's some good crossover stuff with the work they're doing and the work you're trying to do.
Oh, definitely, that'd be great. Yeah, and there's such energy at community level. I think if you can channel it the right way, it's so powerful.
Yeah, and some of the stats they shared too. I mean, think something like there's 270,000 households in Vermont, but they've got 230,000 individuals on the platform, which like bodes really well. There's a stat he shared about how like the average American, like 26% of Americans say that they know their neighbors by face, but that number is around like 75% in Vermont. So part of that has to do with this network, right? That they built that's really created these dense connections. So yeah, let's definitely get you two connected and maybe even working together. Want to hard pivot here. Want to talk about kind of zooming out the voluntary carbon market, and I want to hear a bit more about Snugg's innovative carbon credit scheme and understand how it works and how it can contribute to home decarbonization.
Yeah, great. So I mean, carbon credits are, I think you probably say, a little bit controversial at the moment.
Yeah,
there's been a fair degree of criticism of the voluntary carbon market, but they're equally increasingly accepted that as basically an economic mechanism to transfer money essentially from people who need to buy carbon offsets to people who have projects that need funding to reduce carbon. And they're, in an ideal world you wouldn't need them, but just in this transition they really have an incredibly important role to play. Most voluntary carbon credits have traditionally focused on developing countries, so kind of forestation projects or heat stoves or whatever in developing countries, again for good reason. But there's been a real shortage of high quality carbon credits in kind of more close to home markets. So if you in the UK, if you wanted to buy a carbon credit, it would probably be something to do with afforestation or peatlands or something, but not really much more than that. There's equally a huge demand for high quality credits. So what we've done is got a project approved, kind of accredited project, whereby if we monetize the carbon saving that individual homeowners make and bundle that up and sell it to people who want to buy those credits. So our obviously it depends on the market price, but our estimate that this could be worth, approximately £1,000 per homeowner by doing this aggregation for them. So that's a meaningful amount of money, and there's a fair bit of tech needed to get that to work at a really micro level, but as I say, for that kind of prize, we're really keen to help it happen. And obviously, This is something that doesn't need any government support to make happen. There's no government funding required. The funding is done by businesses that need to buy carbon offsets, and that cash goes straight to the homeowner. So
That's great.
it's doing a social good as well, a bit of project work to get it to work, to get working. But we're really excited about it. And as I say, if you multiply £1,000 by 13 million households, you get a pretty meaningful amount of money contributed to retrofitting.
Yeah. Would you say that affordability piece is like the biggest hurdle, like just convincing homeowners to like, at least apply for things like this, or, come out of pocket at least a little bit to make this, home decarbonization happen?
Yeah, and again, you've got a huge diversity of different types of people, how much money they've got to spend on this, their motivation, etc. Most people who are doing this at the moment are definitely kind of the very early stage of the adoption curve, enthusiasts and early adopters, etc., who will kind of deal with the disruption and the cost really because they just feel it's the right thing to do, or what have you. The mass market need a business case. They need to be convinced that this is worthwhile for them. They want to save money on fuel bills, not increase their bills. As kind of Snugg as a whole, we've got this little moniker that we're trying to turn investment in home energy efficiency from a no-hoper to a no-brainer. And that means bringing more elements into the mix in terms of what the business case. So adding, showing people what the impact on the value of their house might be, giving them more attractive financial products, particularly getting them in touch with grants. Grants aren't always particularly easy to get hold of. Helping them make better technology choices. Obviously, getting better fuel savings by optimizing the tariffs they're using, etc. And the carbon credit is one important element in that. The carbon credit won't make the case in its own right, but it's one of the building blocks, which is quite important.
Yeah. So along with affordability, we talked about briefly kind of the education hurdle of like getting people, helping them become more aware and understanding the challenge that's before us, largely with home decarbonization, but also B, the role they can play into it. So I'm just obviously had to look at y'all's website, and you've got a great blog with all this information. Just want to understand better how you're sort of rolling out, really like content as your second product to like kind of move people along this like buying journey and help them understand, and then move to action. What have you had to kind of roll out in your growth journey to bring people along?
Yeah, so we got a great marketing team who help with the blogs. We got a great copywriter who writes as a human. We do try chat GPT, but frankly, I just find it comes out a bit anodyne and not very insightful.
Right.
So it's much I generally find we might use it as a basis, but getting a human being overseeing it is really important. And as I mentioned, we're building in our relatively sophisticated content management system just to help onboard people, get a little bit more effectively, nudge them through the journey, and deliver personalized content. And I mean, one obvious thing is if someone expresses interest in an air source heat pump in their plan, then we'll feed them content about air source heat pumps, and before we send them stuff about solar, for instance. So we're really, really keen that we don't come across as spamming. That we are, thinking about their needs, talking to them about stuff that's relevant to them, and helping them at the point that they are ready to make a purchasing decision. So and that will vary. Our kind of business plan estimates people will spend on average about 3 years in this journey. So some people will dive straight in, and some people will take ages and just do some energy efficient light bulbs or what have you, and some self-serve stuff before they make the bigger decisions. But whatever, it's going to be a long journey for most people.
Yeah, I'm sure that the customer journeys really vary from household to household, and that's got to make your marketing and sales work very interesting. curious to hear a bit more about your founder story, your co-founder story. You're, an engineer with an MBA, and you've worked with, big businesses like Ernst Young and Aviva. You've been, co-founded your own business to help businesses meet their SDG targets. What was your inspiration for ultimately co-founding Snugg and kind of dedicating your life as it is now to this cause of home decarbonization?
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to do my own thing. I mean, my career has been pretty much all large corporate, to be honest. But
Mm.
I've always wanted to do my own business, and this is an opportunity. And then to do something, that's good for the world is really makes me feel good about myself. My two daughters, who were, they've always been my cheerleaders, but they were
Mm.
even more enthusiastic when I was doing something kind of good for the
Sure.
world. So, yeah, that's good. And being a founder is incredibly hard work, but loads and loads of fun.
Amen to that. I can very much relate to that.
Yeah.
We're about 4 years into our journey with Little Humans this June, and gosh, it's not for the faint of heart, I would say. So
Yeah, it just kind of never ends, really, does it? I mean, I'm so pleased with where we've got to, but
yeah,
I have to kind of celebrate it occasionally because it doesn't feel like a celebration most of the time.
yeah, lots of. I mean, you guys have won like the Green Home Finance Accelerator and the TSB and some really cool, exciting awards, and so you're getting the plaudits, and it sounds like you're, hitting your mark there. Um, Curious to hear about what the future holds for Snugg and kind of maybe more broadly the UK home decarbonization effort. Do you have any big, hairy, audacious growth goals for 2024 and beyond? What are you kind of working to achieve right now?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of moonshot, I guess, is to help take 1 million tons of carbon per annum out of the UK. I think
Wow.
it's a big round number.
Big.
It takes quite a lot of scale to do that, but that's kind of what we're aiming for. We In the shorter term, I mean, the Green Home Finance Accelerator is a government grant, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
But just like any startup, we're really focusing on getting a commercial model out of Snugg, something that
Right.
makes sense from our investors as well as our customers. And we're making good progress to do that. I personally believe strongly that a huge challenge like decarbonisation needs grown-up businesses to do it. It needs
Mm.
industrialized capability,
Mm.
and I'm keen to build Snugg into something that can work at sector level, well respected, stable, etc. And we're investing relatively hard in that, and I think there's an opportunity to create kind of a sector level solution here, which can work for lots of big enterprises at the same time rather than just one at a time. So definitely keen to build an industrial scale business because the challenge is just so huge.
Yeah. That's really powerful too. I think just sort of putting out the challenge there of like I think you said we need grown up businesses that really kind of know what they're doing. They're taking the cause really seriously. I mean, what more important cause? People ask me like, what do you want to do after agency world? I'm like, I'm pretty sure climate tech. Like, I think that's where
Yeah.
we need to work. Like, I don't know if I have a choice. Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, I found,
Mm.
one of the funnest things actually about climate tech and the climate
Mm.
world generally is people generally want to collaborate and,
Mm.
recognize each other's strengths um, and there is so much development going on so quickly. The
Mhm.
space, realistic, there's probably space for everybody,
Yeah.
but at the same time, recognizing what everybody's respective strengths are. And
Mhm.
we started as a kind of a one-stop shop, and we just still try and do that. But the only way we'll deliver a one-stop shop solution is by really deeply collaborating with some other brilliant businesses. So,
Yeah.
so that's a big part of our focus at the moment.
One of our guests put it really, and we quote this all the time, but it put it really nicely, is like kind of all tech will be climate tech in 5, 10 years, 20 years. Like just
Yeah.
this idea that like whether you've got a fintech and HR tech, ed tech, like there better be a sustainability angle to it, because if it's not sustainable, I mean it's financial and environmental prospects are dwindling as we speak. So
Yeah, as a ghost, that reminds me, back at Aviva, I was part of Aviva Digital,
mhm.
and you kind of think after a few years, well, which part of Aviva is not digital?
Yeah.
Where's the analog part of everything's digital, right? So yeah, I think I agree. It's kind of ultimately we should all be trying to save the planet one way or the other.
Yeah, some of these monikers like remote work it's just work now, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
co-working, we're just working, together.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, where can folks find out more about Snugg and on the interwebs, as it were, and how can they get engaged with supporting your mission?
Yeah, really simple. www.snugg.com, Snugg with two G's, and that'll bring you into the journey. So,
And have to ask, branding wise, where'd the name come from? Snugg. What's behind it?
it's an ex-colleague of mine at Aviva just was helped with the initial ideation, and we loved it. It just it's kind of snug, like cozy, and then the kind of hygge thing as well. We just thought, oh, so on brand. It's perfect. Yeah,
It's a good one. Like, you got like basically the word hug almost in your so like, yeah, it feels cozy, it feels warm. So well done on that. That's your first job, I think, is naming yourself.
and we got the domain name, as well. Thank heavens. Yeah,
That's
actually, we've also got snugg.ai, so that should have a big tick on the valuation as well.
Just wait for those AI dollars to roll in. That's what that's
Exactly.
for. Well, this has been another great episode of Tech Can't Save Us podcast, brought to you by Little Humans. We've been talking today with Robin Peters, co-founder and CEO of Snugg. They're doing fantastic work when it comes to home energy efficiency and home decarbonization. And just, thank you so much for your work and joining us today, Robin.
Really nice speaking to you, Paul.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thanks. And everyone, please, as always, give us a nice little 5-star rating, give us a like, smash the subscribe button so we can keep bringing more great guests like Robin onto the pod and talking about tech that can save us on Tech Can't Save Us. So thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.